Good evening, friends. Welcome to the discussion on the topic Caste Stratification among Indian Muslims and State Discourse, organized by Association for Social and Economic Equality, Nagpur. Friends, I am very happy to tell you that our 74th webinar is coming today under the guidance of Professor Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat sir and his tireless efforts and all of us participating punctual listeners, we were able to reach this moment. Thank you so much, all of you. The theme of today's 74th webinar is Caste Stratification among Indian Muslims and State Discourse. Today's webinar is chaired by Honorable Padamshree, Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat sir, ex-chairman of UGC and ICSSR and president of Association for Social and Economic Equality, Nagpur. I warmly welcome to you, sir. Today's guest speaker is Honorable Shireen Azam, ma'am, DPhil researcher at the University of Oxford and formerly assistant editor at the journal Economic and Political Weekly. On behalf of the association, I warmly welcome to you, ma'am. Welcome. Yeah. On behalf of the association, I also welcome to Professor Vimal Thorat, madam, Dr. Trilok Hazare, sir, and Dr. Gautam Kamble, sir, who have consistently strived to for the organization on this webinar. On behalf of the association, I also welcome to the participants who have joined with us from many states of India as well as abroad. Friends, now I would like to invite respected Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat sir to present the role of organizing today's discussion. Dr. Honorable Sukhadeo Thorat sir.
गुड इवनिंग टू ऑल ऑफ यू। आपको पता है कि पिछले कुछ हफ्तों से हम शेड्यूल कास्ट कन्वर्टेड टू अदर रिलीजन सच एज क्रिश्चियनिटी, सिखिज्म, इसके ऊपर चर्चा कर रहे हैं और उनका जो स्टेटस है कन्वर्जन के बाद उस रिलीजन में क्या है वो समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। दलित क्रिश्चियंस, उसके बाद दलित सिख, इनकी स्थिति पे हमारे 2 लेक्चर हुए हैं। शेड्यूल कास्ट और दलित कन्वर्टेड टू बुद्धिज्म, इसके ऊपर भी हम लेक्चर करेंगे। वो लेक्चर अगले हफ्ते होगा, लेकिन उसके पहले हमने ये सोचा कि जो इस्लाम में जो कास्ट स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन है या डिवीजन है और उसमें भी जाति के आधार पे डिफरेंट तरीके से क्यों न हो, एक डिवीजन पाया जाता है और सेग्रीगेशन भी है, सोशल और मैरिटल रिलेशन में शायद है, तो उसके ऊपर भी हम कुछ समझने की कोशिश करें। इसलिए हमने शरीन आजम को रिक्वेस्ट की थी और शरीन ने एक्सेप्ट किया, उसके लिए हम उसके आभारी है। कास्ट इन मुस्लिम्स इन इंडिया, इसके ऊपर लोगों ने काम किया है। जहाँ तक मेरा अंदाजा है, जो छोटा मोटा काम अभी छोड़ दे तो जो मुख्य काम है वो इम्तियाज अहमद जो है, जो जवाहरलाल नेहरू यूनिवर्सिटी में डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ पॉलिटिकल साइंस में प्रोफेसर थे, उनकी अपनी पहली राइटिंग्स है। उसके बाद फिर बहुत और लोगों ने भी लिखा है। उसी से एक तरीके से लोगों को जानकारी हो गई कि सर्टिफिकेशन इस्लाम में भी है, उसमें जाति के आधार पे भी डिवीजन होता है। नेशनल सैंपल सर्वे जो रिलीजन पे डेटा कलेक्ट करता है, उस पे जो मुस्लिम हाउस होल्ड है या व्यक्ति है, उनको जाति का बैकग्राउंड पूछते हैं। आप फॉर्मर शेड्यूल कास्ट है, फॉर्मर ओबीसी है या और कुछ है, तो ये जो शेड्यूल कास्ट का डेटा हमें मिल जाता है, जो हम शेयर करेंगे इसके बाद कभी दूसरे लेक्चर में, ये सेल्फ रिपोर्टेड है। मुस्लिम खुद बताते हैं कि हम शेड्यूल कास्ट है या नहीं, ओबीसी है या नहीं। ओबीसी को तो रिजर्वेशन में मिल जाता है, तो ये सेल्फ रिपोर्टेड फिगर होते हैं, उससे उनकी स्थिति का पता चल जाता है। वो हम मेरा ख्याल है किसी एक संडे को डिस्कस करेंगे। तो ये कुछ हद तक एक शेड्यूल कास्ट इन मुस्लिम एक रिकॉग्नाइज कैटेगरी बन गई है। और सतीश देशपांडे के चेयरमैनशिप में गवर्नमेंट ने एक कमेटी बनाई थी दलित क्रिश्चियन और दलित मुस्लिम के इशू को लेके, क्योंकि दलित मुस्लिम भी रिजर्वेशन की बात कर रहे हैं। उनका कहना है कि उनका भी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होता है सोसाइटी में। तो ये इशू जो है एक तरीके से इसको रिकॉग्निशन मिला है, लेकिन इसके ऊपर और डिटेल में हमारी समझ बढ़ने के लिए हमने शिरीन आजम को बुलाया है। So I'm very happy that she had joined and she has agreed to talk to us. She has done work on this. I think we look forward to listen to her. With that, I will now request you to invite her so that we can start.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Honorable Shireen Azam ma'am to present her ideas. But before that, I invite Ms. Rajani Bahadure, PhD research scholar, to introduce today's guest speaker.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker for today's webinar, Shireen Azam ma'am, who is going to talk to us about the caste stratification among Indian Muslims and state discourse. Shireen Azam ma'am is a DPhil researcher at the University of Oxford. Her research is centered on the uncomfortable feat between caste and secularism, and specifically on the invisibilization of caste among Muslims. She was formerly assistant editor at the journal Economic and Political Weekly, where she founded the digital platform EPW Engage. She currently co-runs India in a public history project which makes accessible explainer videos based on peer-revised academic history. Please welcome today's speaker, Shireen Azam ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajni ma'am and Vidya ma'am, for the introduction. And thank you so much, Professor Thorat, for inviting me. Very honored to be at the Association for Social and Economic Inequality. And I have seen some of the videos of past lectures, and this is a really important space, and I'm very happy to be able to contribute here. I am just back from field work and I am a little unwell. So if I make any mistakes, please excuse me for that. I hope my voice is audible enough. Is that okay, Vidya ma'am?
You are audible.
Yeah, great. Okay. So I will start sharing a screen. I don't have much on my screen, but it's just easier to pay attention to certain words and sentences. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay, great.
Yes.
Okay.
Loud.
So louder?
Yes.
Okay, sure, I'll be louder. I want to speak about caste and Muslims, but right now I am doing field work. I am meeting a lot of lower caste and backward caste Muslim groups in UP and Maharashtra both, and I am looking at how these groups come together and articulate Muslim caste, and that is one part of my thesis. And perhaps in the Q&A, if there are more questions about it, I can talk in more detail about caste groups and caste organizations and anti-caste movements. This talk, I am trying to focus on something which is slightly different, which is on how Muslim caste is represented in state and policy discourse. So I will later look at a few government documents and see how is it, as Professor Thorat said, that there has been work on Muslim caste. It's something that's important, but somehow it's invisible. And I want to talk about that invisibilization, as I call it. So I will start now. Muslim community, as we all know, is constantly spoken of in India. It is a community that is constantly scrutinized, attacked, and at some level even defended. Not one day goes right now, in TV channels where this community is not talked about in some way. Everyone is always talking about Muslims who constitute less than 20% of the population. But for a community that is so minutely examined, इतनी बात होती है इस community के बारे में, लेकिन फिर भी it seems that there is one thing जिसके बारे में बात बिल्कुल नहीं होती है, and that is caste. So Muslims are constantly spoken of in public discourse, but Muslim caste is never spoken of. So thus caste is an invisibilized entity within a hyper-visibilized socio-religious group. There is something about caste that उसके बारे में बात नहीं होती, even though Muslims के बारे में बात होती है. We know from many records, and we can start with British census records and ethnographies by British ethnographers, which have made it clear that Muslims have different social groups which are endogamous, which marry within each other, and that there is a sense of hierarchy between these groups. There is a sense of ooch and niche. It's not just tribes which are different, but there is a sense of vertical hierarchy in different regions in these groups. Post-independence, sociologists like Gauss Ansari in the 1960s, and later, as Professor Thorat was mentioning, Imtiaz Ahmad produced some crucial work on caste among Muslims. Many of these works were ethnographies of Muslim societies in UP, Bihar, Kerala, many different parts of India. Imtiaz Ahmad's book in 1974 is a compilation of essays of different parts of India, and each essay talks about how caste manifests in different parts. So there's a essay, for example, on Ranchi, where I come from, and how in a town different caste groups work. And these essays establish with much clarity that three things, which Sachar community also later talks about, three things that is important to caste is present in Muslims. One, that they have traditional hereditary occupation that is carried over from one generation to the other. Second, that they are endogamous, they marry within each other. And third, as I was saying, that there is a sense of hierarchy between all these groups. All these three things are clearly established in these essays in different parts of India. Of course, the way it manifests is different, but we can say, because even Hindu caste manifests differently in different parts of India. Every place is not the same, hierarchies are not the same. But these three things are present in caste in Muslims in different parts of India. This is what Imtiaz Ali's compilation of ethnographies established. Now, but even then, even though after this phenomenal work, and Professor Ahmad was at JNU, which was a very recognizable institution, apart from a few sporadic works, most scholarly works on Muslims continue to treat Muslims as a monolith community, and a community which has to be taught with respect to religion alone and as a minority alone. So in the introduction to his book, Professor Ahmad notes that several scholars, when confronted with caste in Muslims, for a long time, they chose to call it with other names. So of course, we call it Biradri or Zat, or even people call it caste-like, but they won't use the word caste for it. As an example, Parvez Nazir, he has an EPW essay in 1993. He makes a distinction between caste system and something he calls caste labels. He says Hindus have caste system, but Muslims don't have caste system. They just have caste labels. And this difference is very weak. I don't have time to go into the definition of Dr. Nazir, but perhaps we can do it later in the session. A lot of independent India scholarship on caste and Muslims has ended up being focused on the question of its closeness to Hindu caste system. Is it as much as Hindu caste system? Is it not as much? Is it that important? And there has been a lot of quibbling over specific details. And as I said, there's been a lot of attempt at trying to call features of caste something not caste. People will call it caste-like, but not caste. However, post the 1990s, literature emerging out of what is called the Pasmanda movement in Bihar and later UP took a different and political approach. There's also very interesting work in Maharashtra, which I suppose which is where the group is based in, and there is very interesting movement in Maharashtra also, but they did not produce as much literature as much as was produced out of UP and Bihar, mostly because Ali Anwar was a journalist and he had a book called Masawat Ki Jang, which became very fundamental. I'm sure many of you will be aware of it. Now, Pasmanda movement, what it did is it took a political approach and it left focusing and quibbling, and debating on matters of definition, and it brewed new energy into the Muslim caste question by talking about it as a question of power and contemporary politics. Now, if you have read Dr. K. Satyanarayan's essay on Dalit reconfiguration of caste, he talks about exactly this movement in the study of Dalits in general in India, while earlier sociologists who mainly belonged to the upper castes in the 60s and 70s, they did study caste and they did study Dalit communities. They always studied it from a sociological point of view. You would go to the village and you would write down how things worked. But what happened post 80s is that the question of power was infused in the question of caste, in the question of caste scholarship, and that, according to Professor Satyanarayana, reconfigured the question of caste in academia. And a similar thing happened in the 90s with Muslim caste, where we moved from the question of whether Muslims have caste to the fact that most Muslims of India belong to backward castes. Now, the numbers are a bit shaky because we don't have a caste census. We can talk about this later, but by all estimates, we can comfortably say that most Muslims of India belong to backward castes. So this was a move in scholarship in the 1990s. Now, coming to, okay, one more thing. A lot of Pasmanda scholarship talks about how the invisibilization of caste in Muslims has helped the Muslim elite. Muslim elite have gained by denying the presence of caste hierarchy. And the perfect example that a lot of these records say, they quote, is the tussle between Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Abdul Qayyum Ansari in the 1940s before independence. While Jinnah was claiming to represent all Muslims in front of the International Congress and the British, a backward caste leader from a Julaha or a weaver community, later called Ansaris, he was from Bihar, he was trying to dispute the claim. Records show that Abdul Qayyum Ansari wrote several letters to Nehru, Rajendra Prasad, and several British officers, emphasizing that Muslim League represents the, and I quote, zamindars, capitalists, and the elite caste of Muslim society, end quote. And it emphasized that most Muslims, in fact, are treated badly by upper castes and often work as bonded laborers in their land. Papia Ghosh has an excellent essay on this, if anyone of you is interested. Now, even the 1946 election, which settled the question of Pakistan in many ways, it was already tilted in favor of upper caste Muslims because only people who had land and only people who were educated could vote. And at that point, they were mostly the upper castes. So the upper castes got to choose, got to vote in favor of Pakistan. Now, this is one of the examples through which upper caste Muslim leadership gains by denying caste in Muslims. Now, the discontinuation of caste census after independence and the removal of scheduled caste status for Dalit Muslims meant that the question of caste in Muslims was successfully laid to rest in national politics and mainstream academic discourse after independence. So this is what happened after the decade's independence. Now, coming to today, only in the last few years, we have seen some excellent scholarship and a lot of data-driven scholarship as well. So I cite a study published by Trivedi and a few other authors like Srinivas Goli in EPW. And they've also published in several other papers. I can link to the papers later if anyone needs it. This study surveyed 7,000 households in UP in 2015. And they established the practice of untouchability among Muslims through a large sample survey. Another study by the same authors established that 76% of Muslims are lower caste, while 24% Muslims are Dalits in UP. Now, this is a very huge number. 24% estimation of Dalit Muslims is, if true, will be a very large number, because right now it is out of our imagination completely. The study also reiterates the difference in indicators for upper caste and lower caste Muslims. Rural poverty in Dalit and OBC Muslims is 53% and 42% against 31% in upper caste Muslims. Of course, upper caste Hindus are still way ahead than upper caste Muslims, and equivalence between the two is not possible. I think the rural poverty in upper caste Hindus is only 15% as opposed to 31%, but we can see a large difference between backward caste Muslims and upper caste Muslims. Now, this is a sample study which is only based on 7,000 households and only one state of India. Obviously, we need much wider data to truly understand the demographics of this large population. NSSO data, while it is useful, it does have some restraints. Perhaps we can talk about it in the question and answer session. We right now face a data lacuna about caste and Muslims, and many estimates are based on estimates from the 1931 census data. Now, my interest in this is, the question of caste and Muslims has the potential to unravel a host of claims about India's Muslim population, including how do we understand their social and economic backwardness. A lot of essays about Muslims' education backwardness. I was reading EPW papers from the 80s, and there was an education policy report which showed that Muslims and Neo-Buddhists have the least education in the country. And there were so many papers which immediately said, this is because one, Muslims are too religious, Muslims go to madrasas, Muslims are stuck in minority complex. So this is how we have been reading Muslims' educational backwardness as something that arises out of their religious desires or religious constraints. Now, we don't understand Muslim socioeconomic backwardness as a caste problem. If we truly understood caste in Muslims, we would have a very different understanding of India's Muslim population. Now, it's a question of such a huge import. It really raises the question, how is it something that's so prevalent and so important, which is caste in Muslims? How is this so absent in scholarship? How did caste in Muslims become invisible in public discourse? So much so that Dalit Muslims do not even qualify as scheduled caste. How is it a non-issue in a hyper-visible community? And why are Muslims studied through the lens of religious politics alone, through secularism, through communalism, through terrorism, through religious sectarianism? Why are those the lenses and not caste? So in my work here, I look at the processes that led to the invisibilization of caste among Indian Muslims in state discourse. I turn to state discourse to see how the object of Muslim caste has been treated. So I look at a few commission reports, and these are some of the reports that I look at quickly. These are very major reports that I'm sure all of you would have come across at some point or the other. And I just want to see a deep analysis of how does the wording, how does the question of Muslim caste come, and how is it talked about. Vidya ma'am, I just hope that my audio has been fine. Are there any issues so far?
The audio video.
It's been fine, right? Okay, thank you.
Right.
So I'll continue. Okay, so these are some of the reports, and with these reports, I'll return to two questions. I will think about how does the state's treatment of Muslim caste fit with the idea of upper caste castelessness. I mean, it's a concept theorized by Professor Satish Deshpande, that there is a tendency to perform castelessness by the upper caste elite of this country. And second, I'm interested in thinking about what is the relationship of treatment of Muslims as a religious minority and caste becoming invisible in Muslims. So sorry, I hope I have not said too many words here, but I will now get to some specifics in some reports, and I think everyone will be able to see some of the literature here. So these are a bunch of reports, and I will start with the Mandal Commission report, which we know has been a historic report. It also has given reservations to 80 Muslims and other backward classes, and it has been fundamental in the struggle for recognition of Muslim caste. However, even something as radical as the Mandal Commission report ends up invisibilizing caste and Muslims in a certain way. It says that it emphasizes that the religion is totally egalitarian in its outlook, and any social differentiation based on caste is an anathema to the religion. And it emphasizes a lot, it places a lot of emphasis on the egalitarian aspect of caste. And even though it does give reservations to other backward classes, Muslims, it also says that caste cannot be the only basis for giving reservations to Muslim communities. So a reading of these commission reports, one notices something that I call a simultaneous acceptance and a simultaneous undermining of caste in Muslims. मतलब वो बोलते हैं कि है भी है और नहीं भी है. हर जगह मुझे दिखता है कि वो accept करते भी हैं और तुरंत बोलते हैं नहीं नहीं, but you know it's not so important. There is this play happening constantly. Now Mandal Commission report is still a very progressive report, of course. We will go to the Gopal Singh report in 1983. This was a report commissioned to look into poverty among various marginalized groups, and minorities were a key focus in volume 1. Now, the report starts with looking at the problem of Muslim backwardness. It immediately says the Muslims are backward and Muslims have poverty because a lot of Muslims are involved in manual occupations. It recognizes, it does does a wide survey of various castes, various states in India, and it says the problem of Muslim backwardness is tied with their manual occupations. The report goes into detail about an incongruence it finds. It says Muslims overwhelmingly work as artisans and manual laborers in small-scale industries, but hardly own any mills or handlooms. मतलब Muslim ये सब industries में काम करते हैं, but they don't own any of this. The report finds, I think I have a slide here. No, okay, maybe not here. Okay, the report finds that 51% of workers in the handicraft sectors in India are Muslims, 51%, but only 4.4% units of handicraft sectors are owned by Muslims. So the report is very close in recognizing that Muslims don't have land, or they don't have, they don't own.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Hello. Please speak in Hindi if possible.
Okay, I actually told Professor Thorat that I will try to speak in Hindi. Okay, I'll try as much as possible. I'm sorry, just because I'm trained to think in English a bit. I'll try as much as possible. Thank you, sir. Yeah. It's like you've learned in English, so it's easy to speak in English, but I'll try it. So ये report में it's very clear कि जब ये रिपोर्ट पॉवर्टी चालू करता है देखने के लिए कि ठीक है मुस्लिम में पॉवर्टी की प्रॉब्लम क्या है, तो फिर ये रिपोर्ट देखता है कि अच्छा पॉवर्टी का प्रॉब्लम है कि मुसलमान मैनुअल ऑक्यूपेशन से ज्यादा जुड़े हुए हैं, और वो ये भी बताते हैं कि मुस्लिम्स ओन वेरी लिटिल ऑफ द प्लेसेस दे वर्क इन. तो मुस्लिम वीवर्स हैं लेकिन कोई भी वीविंग इंडस्ट्री वो ओन नहीं करते हैं. 50% मुस्लिम्स आर आर्टिसंस, कलाकार हैं और कामगर हैं, लेकिन वो कोई भी यूनिट ओन नहीं करते वो. तो the report is very close, as you can see, to saying कि this is because of caste, that it is because of caste structure that Muslims work here, but they don't own this. But you will see that they stop just short of saying it. So they use words like occupational communities, old professions, traditional craft, ancestral trade. ये सारे वर्ड यूज करते हैं मुस्लिम के काम के बारे में. एंसेस्ट्रल ट्रेड क्या होता है? कास्ट ट्रेड होता है, लेकिन कास्ट वर्ड नहीं यूज करते हैं ये रिपोर्ट. इनफैक्ट ये रिपोर्ट इज वेरी सरप्राइज्ड दैट it says, and I quote, Muslims have a lot of talent in arts and crafts, but it is surprising that they are still landless and poor and exploited. मतलब वो the word talent is such a funny word in this context to use कि वो बोलते हैं, रिपोर्ट बोल रही है कि मुस्लिम्स के पास बहुत टैलेंट है लेकिन फिर भी वो बेचारे गरीब क्यों हैं. मतलब अगर आप समझते कि टैलेंट, lower caste people have talent, just that they don't have the means to capitalize on the talent. So if the commission understood art among Muslim communities as something which is steeped in caste, because most of our artisan groups in India, they do belong to backward caste communities, as do Muslims. But the commission thinks of talent as something that is ahistorical, that is uncontextual, but talent hai. They don't see it as a caste occupation. So you can see how willingly, even though a report is meant to look at poverty in Muslims, आप Muslims poverty देख रहे हैं, हम उनके occupation की problems देख रहे हैं, आपको caste दिख के भी आप अनदेखा कर रहे हैं, आप उसको caste word नहीं दे रहे हैं, आप उसको ancestral trade बोल रहे हैं, आप उसको हजारों नाम दे रहे हैं. और सबसे इंटरेस्टिंग चीज इस रिपोर्ट में ये है कि सबसे ज्यादा फोकस इस रिपोर्ट में मुस्लिम्स के बारे में है. मतलब ये रिपोर्ट में सारे माइनॉरिटीज के जिक्र हैं, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा टाइम जो जैसे इंडिया में भी होता है कि सबसे ज्यादा मुस्लिम से फोकस होता है, लेकिन बाकी सारे माइनॉरिटीज, क्रिश्चियंस, बुद्धिस्ट, सिख्स के बारे में जब भी डिस्कशन होती है तो हमेशा ये मेंशन होता है कि इस कम्युनिटी के बहुत सारे लोग बैकवर्ड कास्ट हैं. लेकिन मुस्लिम का जो चैप्टर है, मैंने बहुत ध्यान से पढ़ा, बहुत बार पढ़ा, मुस्लिम के जो चैप्टर है उसमें ये बात आती ही नहीं है कि ये बहुत सारे लोग बैकवर्ड कास्ट से हैं. somehow even when the educational backwardness is discussed in Buddhist, in neo-Buddhists and Muslims, only neo-Buddhists के बारे में लिखा जाता है कि this is because of the caste. Muslims के बारे में caste की जिक्र नहीं होती है. तो somehow we return to the same question. Muslims are hyper visible, but caste is specially invisible in them compared to any other community in India. तो Abhi mein, I will just pause. I hope I'm doing okay with the mixing of Hindi and English. I'm trying my best here. I'm sorry if I make any mistakes. I want to also talk about, I'll just take a break here and talk about another report, which is the first Backward Class Commission report of 1955. ये report के बारे में भी आप लोग बहुत लोग ने बहुत बार सुना होगा. ये जिसको काका कालेलकर रिपोर्ट बोलते हैं, ये पहली रिपोर्ट थी बैकवर्ड क्लास के मुद्दों पे जो इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद कमीशन हुई थी और ये रिपोर्ट छपी. लेकिन इसके खुद चेयरमैन जो एक ब्राह्मण थे, उनने जो रिपोर्ट छप गई और रिपोर्ट ने बोला कि 2000 कास्ट इंडिया में बैकवर्ड हैं, और रिपोर्ट ने दी पूरी एनालिसिस दी कि कास्ट इज द वे वी शुड अंडरस्टैंड बैकवर्डनेस इन इंडिया, और उनके चेयरमैन ने उस रिपोर्ट पे साइन भी किया. एंड में उस चेयरमैन काका कालेलकर ने he got whatever, we don't know what happened to him, but he changed his mind and he wrote a foreword of 30 pages saying that I am now recognizing that it is very dangerous to use caste as a method to determine backwardness in India. Matlab, he started using the words of what we now understand as typical meritocracy, कि caste के basis में मत करो, class के basis में करो. और this is after a detailed report which establishes caste as the right way to understand backwardness in India. So this report is very interesting. Mark Galanter has done a lot of work on this report, and this what you call कि पलटना जो हुआ था चेयरमैन का, उस पे बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग एनालिसिस की गई है, ये परफॉर्मेटिव कास्टलेसनेस के बारे में भी. लेकिन मैं इस रिपोर्ट को देख रही हूँ कि इसमें मुस्लिम्स के बारे में कैसे जिक्र है, मुस्लिम कास्ट के बारे में कैसा जिक्र है. फिर से हम देखते हैं कि मुस्लिम कास्ट एक अजीब स्पेस में प्लेस किया जाता है, पूरी तरह से डिनाई भी नहीं करता है. कोई भी रिपोर्ट ये नहीं बोलता है कि मुस्लिम में कास्ट नहीं है, लेकिन पूरी तरह से एक्सेप्ट भी नहीं किया जाता है. कुछ अजीब स्पेस में साइमल्टेनियस एक्सेप्टेंस एंड अंडरमाइनिंग में छोड़ दिया जाता है. So this is a quote from the report. You all can read it. It says, "It is sad that Islam and Christianity in India must admit that they have failed in their mission of socially uplifting the backward classes, and there are sections in their midst that still labor under social handicaps. Iske pehle there is another paragraph which mentions the word caste. I have not included it here, but the report clearly mentions the word caste also with Islam. Now it says it would be doing a disservice to both Islam and Christianity if we encourage backward individuals following these two faiths to, emphasis here, exaggerate their social hardships and claim that they form a distinct social community. It's almost like ये report बोल रहा है कि we understand कि Muslims have caste in India, it's Muslims and Christians have caste in India, but it is so sad that that has happened. We understand it, it is sad. But then the report says that it will be doing a disservice to these egalitarian religions. जो Islam and Christianity बहुत ही egalitarian religion है, and उनके लिए कितना बुरा होगा अगर बैकवर्ड कास्ट इंडिविजुअल सामने आके बोलेंगे कि हम बैकवर्ड कास्ट हैं. मतलब ये रिपोर्ट में ये समझ में आता है कि दे आर मोर इंटरेस्टेड इन शोइंग कि इस्लाम इज इगैलिटेरियन. उनको असल में मुस्लिम कैसे रह रहे हैं उनसे कम मतलब है, उनको इस्लाम की इमेज से ज्यादा मतलब है कि वो इगैलिटेरियन रिलीजन है. एंड दे आर feeling embarrassed on behalf of this theological religion ki what if backward caste people from this religion come and exaggerate their social hardships. So and then the report says that even though Muslims and Christians have caste, the state, and I quote here, the state should devise ways and means of helping the backward among the communities of Christians and Muslims without forcing them to prove that caste is on the rise in their own fold. So the commission is itself saying ki I hope the state can help Islam and Christianity to not without forcing them to realize that casteism is increased. Somehow state really is embarrassed on behalf of a vague idea of Islam, not Muslims, but of Islam and Christianity. At no point is this commission saying ki caste is not important for Muslims. It is not saying this. It is just saying कि हम लोग नहीं बात करते हैं इसके बारे में क्योंकि religion egalitarian है और हम लोग बात करेंगे तो it will be embarrassing for a religion which is egalitarian. So I found this very, very interesting. There is another very interesting quote, and I have it here, which is very interesting to see how minorities are used in the performance of castelessness in India. तो जो मैंने आपको पहले बताया कि काका कालेलकर पलट गए एंड मोमेंट पे, और अगर उस टाइम पे ये रिपोर्ट इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाता तो we could have got reservations for OBCs 30 years before we got in 1993 finally Mandal Commission was implemented. This is in 1955, 40 years we could have got reservations of 40 years. लेकिन क्योंकि वो पलट गए और पार्लियामेंट में भी बहुत हल्ला हुआ तो the question of reservations for OBCs was shelved for 40 years. 40 साल तक इस बारे में बात ही नहीं हुई मंडल कमीशन तक. I am sure all of you are aware of this, so I won't go into this. लेकिन जो फॉरवर्ड था उनका वो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट था. वो 29 पेज का फॉरवर्ड इज लाइक गोल्ड इन सम वे, बिकॉज उसके वजह से पूरे हिंदुस्तान की वही पूरी हवा पलट गई और जो होने वाला था ओबीसी रिजर्वेशंस वो टल गया. और सबसे इंटरेस्टिंग बात मुझे क्या मिली उस 30 पेजेस में कि कालेलकर एक्चुअली यूजेस द एग्जांपल ऑफ मुस्लिम एंड क्रिश्चियन कास्ट्स to make the argument that caste, that determining backwardness based on caste is a problem. So he says that I was ready to determine backwardness based on caste, but, and you can see it on the screen, he says, my eyes were open to the dangers of suggesting remedies on caste basis when I discovered that it is going to have the most unhealthy effect on the Muslim and Christian sections of the nation. We must be able to help both Indian Christians and Muslims without their being driven to accept the Fitzpatrick's principle of caste. Now he's so smart. Now it will start. He starts to say, this will also enable us to remove the bitterness which the extremely poor and helpless among the upper class Hindus feel, who have been victimized for no fault of their own. Now, if you see these arguments, they are very similar to the arguments of poor upper caste in India. They are helpless, and that's now, of course, we have an EWS category for them. So it's very interesting in here discourse, where first the chairman starts with the example of Muslims and Christian caste to say उनके लिए बहुत बुरा होगा, और फिर वो बोलता है and also to think of it upper caste Hindus के लिए भी ये बुरा होगा if we use caste as a method to determine backwardness. Now, I found this very interesting, and I thought there is a coming together of two different kinds of castelessness. Basically what he's saying, ki we don't want Muslims and Christians to fall into the trap of talking about caste. He uses these words, and so we will save them falling into the trap. So there are the fusion of two different kinds of castelessness. One is the specific denial of caste in Muslims because of egalitarianism, because they are a religious minority. And the other is a general reluctance, which is present in India, which is to use caste as a method to understand backwardness, which is the same thread which says, let's use economic ways to measure backwardness and not caste. So there are two different things merging here. And we can see here that Muslims face a dual denial of caste. उनको पहली भी denial वो face करते हैं कि आप generally caste के बारे में कोई बात नहीं करना चाहता है इस बारे में कि we should not use caste to measure backwardness, and then Muslims face a dual denial, and also Christians to some level, that we will not talk of this because they are minority religions and because their religious texts are egalitarian. I'm just getting some messages. Okay, it's fine. Now, a second technique that is used in invisibilization is in the Ranganathan Mishra report, which is a recent report of 2007. Here, the commission is very clear, बहुत ही clearly बोलते हैं कि मुस्लिम्स में अशराफ, अजलाफ और अर्जाल के बीच में डिविजन है, और ये भी बोलते हैं कि even Muslim law of marriage, the way it is read in India, कुफू जिसको बोलते हैं, वो they have upheld the idea of caste constantly. There's quite a bit of work on how कुफू, जो मोहम्मद अशरफ अली थानवी देवबंद के जो बहुत important scholar थे, he has written this book called बेहश्ती ज़ेवर, जहाँ पे he has argued for caste in Muslims, saying कि this is right because Islam also says कि कुफू में शादी होनी चाहिए, जो है कि you should marry among equals. So caste has been used to legitimize Muslim caste in India, and the commission recognizes this. However, what this commission does, it uses a different method of invisibilizing caste in Muslims. It only remembers caste when you talk of Dalit Muslims. So Dalit Muslims, when you have a chapter on Dalit Muslims, caste is mentioned. But when you talk of Muslims, caste is never mentioned. And thus, if you see on my screen, I've written Dalit Muslim, the category is marked with caste, while the identity of Muslims is a minority, is a religious minority. There is no idea of caste there. So this is another way that is used to undermine the idea of caste. And it's very important here because this was a report, ये report commission ही की गई थी to talk about backward among minorities. This report was for backward caste and Muslims. Still, this report ended up recommending, I think, 15% reservation for all Muslims. And it did not separately insist that all Muslims shouldn't have reservation, the backward caste Muslims should have reservation. Now, caste among Muslims is not only underestimated in concepts, like I've showed, it is also underestimated in enumeration. Population के estimation पे भी इसका किसी न किसी तरह कम किया जाता है. और जैसे हम सबको पता है, caste census क्योंकि नहीं हुआ है 1950 से, इसके वजह से हमें specific detail हमारे पास नहीं है caste groups का, apart from scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and ये problem Muslims के साथ भी होता है. मंडल कमीशन रिपोर्ट put 52% as the number of backward caste Muslims. And it put it because it said ki, we have calculated, it used data from 1931. It's a complex calculation. I can talk about it in detail if anyone needs. But basically it deducts, wo jo 100 se wo forward caste ka percentage deduct karte hain from 1931 census. And wo bolte hain ki 52% people are there among Hindus. And fir they say ki Muslims also should be around the same. But the Mandal Commission forgets to count Dalit Muslims. So Dalit Muslims, Hindus में 22% अलग से calculation है, लेकिन Muslims में वो category भूल दिया जाता है completely. Page number 56 of Mandal Commission has this. You all can see this. And thus, Mandal Commission undermines the population of Muslims as 52% alone, which if accurately calculated by the 1931 census, it should be 52 plus 23, which would be 75% at least. Now, Sachar Committee report is one of the only reports which does not heavily invest in making caste invisible in Muslims. However, वो रिपोर्ट भी it falls short, क्योंकि सचार रिपोर्ट NSSO रिपोर्ट की डेटा से बोलती है कि there are 40% backward caste Muslims in India, and NSSO report is self-reported, as Professor Thorat was also saying. And Muslim caste is an entity because of years of invisibilization. The self-reporting in Muslim caste is especially low. Also because there is no language of affirmation and assertion of caste. जैसा बहुत assertion movements आए हैं दलितों को लेके हिंदू कास्ट में, मुस्लिम कास्ट को वैसे assertion movements उतने लेवल पे नहीं आए हैं across the country. So Muslims see no value in saying I am backward caste because they don't think they'll get anything out of it. तो वो अपने आप को शेख बताते हैं. अभी मैं बहुत सारे communities के साथ काम कर रही हूँ और ये communities जादूगर कास्ट बोलते हैं, मदारी कास्ट जिसको बोलते हैं, मनिहार कास्ट जो चूड़ियां बनाती हैं, ये सारी कास्ट में अपना सरनेम शेख लगा दिया है. शेख इज एन अपर कास्ट टाइटल. ये इसलिए लगा दिया है क्योंकि दे वांट टू फील डिग्निटी, उनको डिग्निटी फील कराना है, इसलिए उन्होंने टाइटल शेख लगा दिया है. एंड दिस इज हैविंग अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स इन देम गेटिंग ओबीसी स्टेटस बिकॉज दे हैव क्लेम्ड अपर कास्ट स्टेटस without realizing that there is something called OBC where you could get reservation. So this so NSSO maybe, I think, even though I'm not aware of a detailed study on this, but one assumes that the problem with self-reporting of Muslim caste is that Muslims tend to underreport their caste and they have a tendency to claim a higher status more than Hindus. And even this can be established from the 1901 census also. 1901 census से और 1911 सेंसस 10 साल में शेख कास्ट की कैटेगरी के पॉपुलेशन 15% बढ़ गई सिर्फ 10 साल में. एंड दिस अ लॉट ऑफ स्कॉलर्स रीड इट एज द आइडिया ऑफ गोइंग टू अपर कास्ट, द आइडिया ऑफ असर्टिंग अपर कास्ट स्टेटस. So I will try to conclude now because time bhi काफी हो रहा है. So I will just try to talk about a few concepts. How do we read this invisibilization of caste in Muslims? And there are many ways of reading it, but two frames that I find very useful is one, as I mentioned, एक जो castelessness का idea है, which is theorized by many people, but also Professor by Satish Deshpande has done it very beautifully, which is when India जब आजाद हुआ तो there was a reluctance to talk about caste as a criteria, even though all the major spheres, which is political, religious, and all the spheres like law, business, they were all held by upper caste, but there was still reluctance to talk about caste as a measure of equality and inequality. And there is a performative castelessness ki caste does not matter, let's not talk about caste. That's how Patel stopped the census in 1951. The speech he gives is saying caste ke bare mein baat karne se casteism badhta hai, so let's all not talk about caste. That's how it's been justified a lot. Now that is one way how we understand why this has happened. But as I said, Muslims face a dual denial of caste because there is castelessness specific to Muslims, and there is a general castelessness. And the second framework which I find very useful is thinking about how secularism has been treated in the Indian nation state. Secularism पे एक तरह से बहुत ध्यान दिया गया, and there was this idea of celebration of diversity. And Thomas Blom Hansen has worked on how after independence there was a division between culture and politics, and he called valorization of culture and stigmatization of politics. If you think of songs from the time, or if you think of discourse from the time, आपको लगेगा कि एक तरह से discourse था कि सारे cultures अच्छे हैं, सब लोग मिलके आओ गाना गाते हैं. So the question is, what happens to caste when all cultures come together and sing a song? आप caste कहाँ जाता है if you celebrate diversity fully? So Hansen argues that caste got subsumed in this rhetoric of secularism and diversity, and caste के बारे में बात कम होने लगी, and secularism became a facade. एक तरीके से वो एक mask बन गया जिसमें upper caste people could also celebrate their practices. आप आज भी देखोगे कभी कभी there's a lot of thing कि हम पंडित और सैयद बैठ के हम खाना खा रहे हैं, we are so progressive, and people don't realize that you are celebrating caste identities while celebrating so-called secularism. So as Preetam Tinna has very well argued, what secularism and diversity hide is the entire equation of power between communities. So that is interesting, another interesting way to see. Now, even though we are aware of a lot of work which has talked about how जो मंडल और मंदिर और मस्जिद बोलते हैं जिसको, कि मंडल मूवमेंट को रोकने के लिए जो राम मस्जिद का डिस्कोर्स स्टार्ट हुआ, और कैसे हिंदुत्व what it fundamentally does is tries to play up religious binaries by subsuming caste. ये हमें पता है, बहुत सारे लोगों ने इसके बारे में लिखा है कि how caste is hidden and Hindu-Muslim binaries is deepened, but we don't know, we don't have much work on how Muslim caste is used for this. And what I have tried to contribute to is how Muslim caste is also used to create this idea that caste consciousness is a bad thing. So this whole idea of minorities, it's bad to talk about caste and minorities, is a contribution to the castelessness discourse. And here you can see the discourse of minority is being used to undermine caste as a category to determine backwardness. So it's very interesting how minority has been used as a category to undermine caste as a category of backwardness. So I've just tried to show how in different reports this happens. I'll be very happy to talk more about this. And yeah, I will just conclude with this. And I hope that, I know that I wasn't able to fully stick to Hindi, but I hope that in the future I can practice more, and I'll be better with my words there. Thank you so much. I hope that was useful.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. You explained various reports such as Mandal Commission report, Ranganathan, Gopal Singh report, Sachar Committee reports, and many more. आप इस रिपोर्ट्स में मुस्लिम जाति से रिलेटेड सभी सामाजिक स्थिति, उनका एक जीवनमान, इस बारे में आपने काफी विस्तार से बात की है. आपको बहुत बहुत थैंक यू. इसके बाद में प्रोफेसर ऑनरेबल सुखदेव थोराट सर जी को इनवाइट करूंगी या प्रेसिडेंशियल रिमार्क्स से. उसके बाद हम क्वेश्चन आंसर्स लेते हैं.
ये बहुत ही यूजफुल और इंसाइटफुल और वेल स्टडीड लेक्चर रहा. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया शरीन. मैं, क्योंकि मुझे शायद जाना पड़ेगा, यहाँ पर भी लेक्चर शुरू हो रहा 7 बजे, तो मैं एक सवाल पूछता हूँ जिसके ऊपर आप थोड़ा सा ये करें कि जो डिप्रेस क्लास या बैकवर्ड कास्ट की बात हो रही है अमंग द मुस्लिम, और दलित मुस्लिम की भी बात हो रही है, तो ये दो कैटेगरी जो है एक तरीके से इसमें डिफरेंस किया जाता है, ओबीसी एंड शेड्यूल कास्ट मुस्लिम और दलित मुस्लिम. आपकी जो स्टडी है, आपकी जो समझ है, इसमें आप थोड़ा सा जितनी भी इंफॉर्मेशन आपको मालूम हो उसमें आप ये बता सकती है क्या कि जो दलित मुस्लिम है, जो फॉर्मर अनटचेबल है, कि वो तो अनटचेबिलिटी से सफर करता है, ओबीसी अनटचेबिलिटी से नहीं सफर करता, तो ओबीसी और दलित मुस्लिम में क्या फर्क है, यदि है तो कुछ हद तक, और दलित मुस्लिम की स्थिति ओबीसी मुस्लिम के कंपैरिजन में या हायर क्लास कास्ट मुस्लिम के कंपैरिजन में कितनी खराब है, ये क्या है, ये थोड़ा सा आप बताएंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा। आप बताइए ताकि मैं
जी
फिर।
सर, थैंक यू सर, क्वेश्चन के लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। मैं एक स्लाइड स्टार्ट कर रही हूँ जहाँ, हाँ, दलित मुस्लिम्स और ओबीसी मुस्लिम्स में फर्क ये है, तो दलित मुस्लिम्स इज नॉट अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली रिकग्नाइज कैटेगरी नहीं है ये, जैसे हमको पता है शेड्यूल्ड कास्ट स्टेटस दलित मुस्लिम्स को नहीं मिलता है, तो ये सोशियोलॉजिकल कैटेगरी है। लेकिन जैसे आपने बोला, देर आर मेनी कास्ट जिनने अनटचेबिलिटी फेस किया है, जैसे हलालखोर कम्युनिटी, ये महाराष्ट्र में होते हैं और यूपी में होते हैं, और इनका काम सैनिटेशन से रिलेटेड था, और इस कम्युनिटी ने अनटचेबिलिटी अभी भी ये फेस करते हैं। और ऐसी कम्युनिटीज जो हैं इनको ओबीसी में रखा जाता है, तो जाहिर सी बात है कि ओबीसी के अंडर अगर आपको रिजर्वेशन मिल भी गया तो यू कांट compete. How can a halalkhor community, a person from a halalkhor community, compete with a person from, you know, a Yadav or even an Ansari, in India? So एक ये difference जो है, जो backward caste communities समझते हैं हम, OBC communities समझते हैं, the way I understand this is they are artisans and they work with, they have manual occupations. तो you can हम जो बोल सकते हैं वीवर्स, एक लोहार जो होते हैं, और बहुत सारी कम्युनिटीज है मुस्लिम्स में जो ओबीसी के अंडर आती है, who have not faced untouchability. So there's Rain community, which is the community which used to sell vegetables. In Maharashtra they called as the Bagwan community. Bagwan community सब्जी बेचने का बिजनेस करते थे। तो ये जो कम्युनिटीज हैं ये ऑक्यूपेशनल कास्ट से कंपेयर कर सकते हैं। जैसे मैं अभी महाराष्ट्र कोल्हापुर गई थी, तो बागवान कम्युनिटी के लोग बोल रहे थे कि हम माली कास्ट से हम एडजेसेंट हैं, हम you can think of us as adjacent to Mali caste, but and these castes have not faced untouchability, but they still have occupations which require manual labor, and by the logic of backward castes, otherwise they correspond to that, which is also how Mandal Commission has used it. There are a lot of other Dalit Muslim groups, जैसे धोबी कास्ट है, धोबी कास्ट हिंदू में भी है, मुस्लिम में भी है, नाम सेम है, लेकिन अगर आप के रिलीजन मुस्लिम आ जाता है तो आपको एससी स्टेटस से आप हट जाते हैं। तो कास्ट इज एग्जैक्टली द सेम, कास्ट भी सेम है, काम भी सेम है, नाम भी सेम है, लेकिन you don't get you get disqualified if you're a Muslim. And if you've seen some controversy around this person called Wankhede, I'm forgetting, Sameer Wankhede, in you know Maharashtra politics recently, uske saath bhi he has a Muslim name and scheduled caste status, and because now it has been found that he has a Muslim name, he has been denied that status. I hope, sir, and you were asking about the difference between indicators. तो because data की कमी है, डेटा की बहुत ज्यादा कमी है, तो हम लोग बहुत ही सैंपल डेटा से ही बहुत कुछ डेटा निकाल पा रहे हैं। तो एनएसएसओ का डेटा जो सचार यूज करता है, दे हैव सम डेटा, बट आई थिंक दिस डेटा इज स्लाइटली मोर एक्यूरेट बिकॉज इट्स मोर ethnographic, and it's been caste and biradris have been recorded directly from the people. तो ये स्टडी है जो ईपीडब्ल्यू में छपी है, आई कैन लिंक टू द पेपर बाद में। ये पेपर बोलता है कि रूरल पॉवर्टी इन दलित एंड ओबीसी, इन दलित मुस्लिम्स इज 53% एंड ओबीसी मुस्लिम्स इज 42%, एंड अपर कास्ट मुस्लिम्स में वो रूरल पॉवर्टी 31% होती है। और दलित मुस्लिम्स में लैंडलेसनेस इज 80%. 80% of Dalit Muslims don't have land, while upper caste Muslims only 44% is landless. Of course 44% भी काफी बड़ा फिगर है, लेकिन अगर आप कंपेयर किया जाए तो दलित मुस्लिम्स एंड अपर कास्ट मुस्लिम्स में जमीन आसमान का फर्क है उनके सोशियो इकोनॉमिक इंडिकेटर्स में. ऑब्वियसली ओनली जब कास्ट सेंसस होगा तभी हमें और डिटेल में पूरे भारत के बारे में पता चलेगा, लेकिन फ्रॉम ऑल इंडिकेटर्स एंड माय field work as well, there is a book called Bharat Ke Dalit Musalman by by Dr. Ayub Rain, and उनने एक एक कम्युनिटी के बारे में लिखा है. हर कम्युनिटी जो अलग अलग कम्युनिटीज है, दलित कम्युनिटीज, उनके बारे में लिखा है. एंड द वे ही राइट्स इट इज कि ये जो कास्ट है इसमें एक आदमी ने मास्टर्स किया है इस गांव में, इस कास्ट में एक आदमी ने बीए किया है. मतलब यू कैन इमेजिन द लेवल ऑफ डिप्रेविटी इन द कम्युनिटी वेयर यू कैन ट्रेस वन पर्सन जिसने मास्टर्स किया है उस पूरे कास्ट में. तो by all accounts there is a clear difference, and there's also been some study in political representation of Muslims. अशफाक हुसैन अंसारी की एक किताब है जिसमें उन्होंने दिखाया है कि जो भी एमपीज आए हैं भारत के पार्लियामेंट में, वो मैक्सिमम अपर कास्ट मुस्लिम्स रहे हैं, जिनकी परसेंटेज काफी कम है comparatively. So I hope that I've been able to answer broadly, sir, what you were asking.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, I will leave now, Shireen. Thank on my behalf, and the discussion will continue now. Let there be a discussion. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now, dear participant, this platform open for all. Please raise your hand or put your question in chat box. Some questions in chat box are chat box, ma'am. With your permission, can I take one by one?
Of course, ma'am.
Sujoy Kanti Ghoshal says, respected ma'am, as per your presentation, I have two queries. One is anything about caste related issue have been addressed in Quran, and this connection, what is the word view regarding caste? And the second is in India, which issue is significant poverty or caste for Muslim community?
Should I answer now or?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the question, Sujay, and thank you, ma'am. So पहला क्वेश्चन आपका है कि कुरान में कास्ट के बारे में क्या है. तो ऑब्वियसली theologically caste does not come from the Quran, right? We know that it comes from a lot of Vedic scriptures. It's a concept steeped in Brahminical scriptures. Caste का concept कुरान से नहीं आता है, ये concept Brahminical scriptures से आता है. लेकिन बहुत सारे scholars ने काम किया है कि क्या कुरान में कुछ ideas of hierarchy हैं कि नहीं है. कि तो और ये हमें पूछना जरूरी है कि क्योंकि ज्यादातर तो दो चीज है. एक तो ये है कि ज्यादातर इंडिया में जो मुस्लिम्स हैं वो कन्वर्टेड मुस्लिम्स हैं. पीपल हैव एट सम पॉइंट कन्वर्टेड फॉर वॉट एवर रीजन. दे सम हैव either they converted to escape caste or they converted out of many different reasons, but ज्यादातर इंडिया में मुस्लिम्स कन्वर्टेड मुस्लिम्स हैं और ये ज्यादातर लोअर कास्ट मुस्लिम्स हैं. तो जब कोई लोअर कास्ट मुस्लिम ने कास्ट से कन्वर्जन किया, उनका नाम चेंज हो सकता है, उनका काम नहीं चेंज हुआ. क्योंकि आप अगर धोबी हैं और आपने कन्वर्ट कर लिया, आपने इस्लाम मान लिया, आपने कुरान को मानने लगे, आप नमाज पढ़ने लगे, आपका काम तो धोबी रहा ना. अभी आपको तो कोई नहीं बोलेगा कि आके आओ आप हमारे दरबार में बैठ जाओ, आप you are the तहसीलदार from today, you're going to keep accounts from today. तो काम किसी का चेंज नहीं हुआ. तो इसकी वजह से that has continued. And another thing is, even when upper caste upper caste Hindus converted to Islam, a lot of upper caste Hindus also converted for favor or for many reasons. They took upper caste Muslim names. So for example, there are a lot of accounts, जब राजपूत ने convert किया caste, तो वो बन गए पठान. मतलब it's funny almost. ब्राह्मण जब convert किए तो सीधे सैयद बन गए. और it's so funny कि सैयद trace their lineage from Prophet Muhammad. लेकिन when Brahmins convert, they somehow suddenly become, descendants of Prophet Muhammad. लेकिन ये जो धोबी convert करे तो वो धोबी बनेगा. धोबी convert can't become Sayyid. but Brahmin can become Sayyid. तो ये हमने देखा गया है कि because of Islam's assimilation in India, conversion patterns have taken up caste and they have fit. The idea of Islam has fully assimilated with the idea of caste practices here. Now, there is also something interesting about Quran and hierarchy. A lot of people say that there are some concepts, even the Quran does say very clearly that all believers are equal. There are some concepts like kufu, which is also called kafa, which has been used by Deoband scholars to interpret it as caste. So कहीं कुरान में लिखा है कि equality में शादी, आप जब शादी करो तो आप देखो कि आपके, I don't know the real words and I'm sorry, I'm not a theologian, so I could be a little off here, but from how I understand it, कि it says कि आप अपने equal में शादी करो. अब वो जो equal है वो आपके जो मौलानाज are reading it as आप अपने caste में शादी करो. So there are fatwas saying कि कुरान में लिखा है कि कुफू जरूरी है, इसलिए आपकी अंसारी की सैयद से शादी नहीं हो सकती, सिर्फ सैयद की सैयद से शादी होगी. So there have been very interesting interpretations of Quran with a casteist framework in India, which is well established in India's theological clergy. So that is also very interesting. That was slightly useful to you. And your question about which is significant, poverty or caste, that is a very, I think, chicken and egg question. Na? मतलब ये आप Hindus में भी अगर देखोगे तो you can't say poverty or caste. अभी I'm guessing this is a group which talks about caste, and perhaps there has been recognition that caste is the most fundamental structure of Indian society. तो caste से बहुत कुछ effect होता है, क्योंकि poverty is a individual problem. Caste is a group problem. Poverty से आप एक generation अगर आप गरीब है, दूसरा generation अगर पैसा आ गया तो poverty से निकल सकते हैं. Caste ऐसी चीज है जो आपको सदियों से आप नहीं छोड़ सकते. आप president भी बन गए तो आप दलित ही रहेंगे. And this is true of Hindus and Muslims. So caste is a more deeper entrenched problem than poverty in some ways, because caste doesn't leave you even if you have money. And one more thing is that people, even if people give a lot of examples of poor Brahmins, but one thing is that a lot of poor Brahmins, sometimes if you have access to networks, for example, अगर आपका surname कुछ है और आप job के लिए गए, I think Professor Thorat also was involved in a study which saw CVs of people. तो एक random study conduct हुआ था जिसमें अलग-अलग CV भेजे गए थे firms को, और उसमें देखा गया था कि अगर CV same हो और कास्ट सरनेम दलित हो और अपर कास्ट हो तो कैसे अपर कास्ट नाम को ज्यादा बुलाया जाता है. तो अगर बेसिकली द पॉइंट इज ऑब्वियसली पॉवर्टी इज अ वेरी डिफिकल्ट स्टेट, लेकिन आप पॉवर्टी से किसी तरह निकल सकते तो हो, लेकिन कास्ट में आप नहीं निकल सकते. इसलिए आप यू सी examples of how when a Dalit person gets on a horse during a wedding, he is killed. Because poverty is not the problem there. Problem is that आप छोटे कास्ट के होके आप घोड़े पे कैसे बैठे. So it goes beyond poverty, the problem of caste, and the same is true of Muslims also. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Before taking another question, some comments from participants I would like to read, ma'am. Professor Varsha Chandan Shive ma'am says very nicely and serious issue described by you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Then I think Kishore Khandekar sir says बहुत अच्छा सफल अभ्यासपूर्ण विवेचन आपने दिया है. And Mohsin Sheikh and also Shura Dharapuri ma'am, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Now question from T.S. More sir. Please unmute yourself and ask. T.S. More sir, आप सुन रहे होंगे?
आवाज आ रही है मैडम, मेरी आवाज
आ रही है सर, पूछिए.
So it is a very inspired and analytical presentation. Madam, I have to say 2 points. One regarding the happenings 2 days back, you see, in Hyderabad, with regard to the Nagarjuna who married a Muslim woman and her relatives murdered Nagarjuna. So whether we treat or consider it as a honor killing or it is related to faith, caste and murder. This is my point, you see. And next one, the Asghar Ali engineer, here I think work for it. Let me know your opinion with regard to his work. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. I am aware of the very unfortunate, very sad killing. I think all of us would have heard about it. There were many reports. जो reports में बताया गया था, तो ये जो लड़की थी वो सैयद थी, and the guy was from a Dalit community, and there were reports where the girl came on camera to say that my partner was ready to convert, lekin they were not happy. So you can surmise that it was an issue of caste. It was not about Muslim and Hindu alone. It is also about caste. And it's important when we talk about a lot of Hindu-Muslim conflict that we talk about caste first. Because it is बहुत आसान होता है कि कोई भी issue को Hindu-Muslim बनाना, लेकिन जो ज़्यादा reality है, बहुत बार caste से बहुत कुछ पता चलता है. जैसे जो कथुआ में rape हुआ था कश्मीर में, आप लोग को पता होगा 3-4 साल पहले, और वो बहुत न्यूज़ में भी आया था. तो वो एक मुसलमान लड़की का रेप था और बहुत मीडिया में आया भी था कि मुसलमान लड़की का रेप हुआ हिंदू प्रीस्ट से. लेकिन ये बात कम आई थी कि वो जो एक थी वो एक ट्राइबल लड़की थी वो. तो it's not that and I'll say one more point. Lot of times when communal violence happens, अक्सर क्या होता है कि जब भी कोई कम्युनल वायलेंस होता है, राइट्स होते हैं, तो अक्सर जो होते हैं गरीब लोग और लोअर कास्ट लोग मारे जाते हैं. इसलिए नहीं, और बहुत इसलिए नहीं कि वो लोअर कास्ट हैं इसलिए बोल के मारते हैं कि ठीक है हम लोअर कास्ट है, लेकिन अक्सर लोअर कास्ट पीपल फ्रॉम बोथ हिंदू एंड मुस्लिम रिलीजन्स, दे आर इन स्पेसेस वेयर दे आर वल्नरेबल. आप झुग्गी झोपड़ी में रह रहे हैं तो आपको मारना ज्यादा आसान है, ना कि अगर आप कोई मकान में रह रहे हैं. तो अक्सर जो होता है जो सीए प्रोटेस्ट में यूपी में 20 लोग, अगर आप लोग को याद है, 20 लोग को मार दिया गया था पुलिस ने. 20 people were shot dead during CA protest, and ये लोग थे वो जो प्रोटेस्ट भी नहीं कर रहे थे, वो लोग बस आ जा रहे थे, अपने काम कर रहे थे. और ये सारे लोग रिक्शे वाले थे, कोई काम कर रहा था, कोई दुकान में काम करता था, मतलब एज ऑफिस बॉय, दुकान उसका नहीं था. तो ये सारे लोग एकदम ही गरीब तबके के पासमंदा बिरादरी के लोग थे, ये सारे लोअर कास्ट मुस्लिम बिरादरी के लोग थे, और ये सारे मारे गए 20 लोग by the police. Of course the police thought कि these are Muslims. The police didn't know कि ये धोबी कास्ट का मुस्लिम है, लेकिन क्योंकि वो रिक्शा वाला है, क्योंकि वो धोबी है, उसको मारना बहुत आसान हो जाता है, और उसको मारना भी आसान हो जाता है, और ना ही उस पे कोई बात होगी, और वो पूरी तरह से मैटर सब्ज्यूम हो जाएगा. So it is very important for us to see any violence in India which is shown by people as Hindu Muslim, to see caste as an entity. उससे बहुत सारी चीजें पता चलती हैं, और हमें ये पता चलता है कि सिर्फ ऐसा, it's not so simple कि हिंदू मुस्लिम नफरत में हो गया. It is often a question of power, and power किसके पास है, और वो caste से पता चलता है, both in Hindus and in Muslims. I hope that was useful. Thank you.
Any question?
Yeah, can I ask on?
Yeah, sir. Yeah. Professor Thangraj, sir, please ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the topic of the presentation is on stratification. I hardly find stratification. Of course, you mentioned that there is an untouchability among the Christians, among the Muslims. With that, it ends. There is no social discrimination, or forms of discriminations are not discussed in this presentation. Of course, you mentioned it, land and landlessness and poverty. If you compare the Dalits of scheduled caste with the Dalit Muslims, they are slightly better off. Look at the data. So that way, I think Muslim converts slightly better than the Hindu counterpart is one. And then in the Christian study, we found that there was separate place for worship, separate burial ground, separate mass time, all that he noticed it because of the fight by the elite Christians. This practice are slowly is getting reduced. My another question is there any movement which is fighting in the Islam for Dalit Muslim? I think these are my clarification.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, you're right that I didn't focus too much on the social stratification because I wanted to talk about state discourse, but I can do that now. So there has been, I think I mentioned in the introduction that there has been a lot of detailing of the presence of untouchability among Muslims. So there is clear untouchability by upper caste Muslims and towards Dalit Muslims. And Dalit Muslims face untouchability from both Hindus and Muslims both. About your point about Dalit Muslims versus Dalit Hindus and who's better off, there's a lot of data to suggest that Dalit Muslims are far worse off than Dalit Hindus. And this is because they have not been included in the scheduled caste status. So even though they might get some ritual dignity, for example, they might be allowed in mosques together, even sometimes together, to pray together. Of course, there are exceptions, and I'll talk about this later. But by and large, there are a lot of instances where Dalit Muslims are allowed to read namaz together in mosques. So there is more ritual dignity than the Dalit Hindus. But in terms of socio-economic indicators, a lot of data suggests that Dalit Muslims are much worse off than Dalit Hindus. Deshpande report of Sir mentioned this in 2008 on Dalit Christians and Muslims clearly says that Dalit Christians are the most are better off, and Dalit Muslims are the worst off among all Dalit groups because of the unrecognition of Dalit Muslims in the scheduled caste category. Even though Dalit Christians are also not recognized in the scheduled caste category, there is still more recognition and more academic scholarship of the Dalit Christian experience. Sir, I'm forgetting your second question. If you can please just...
Yeah, that is regarding the fight for...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Also, I wanted to mention that there are reports about separate burial grounds in Muslims also. So there have been documentations that in a lot of places, including in UP, that that Dalit Muslims are not being allowed to bury in the same grounds. In fact, I have also heard from participants in my fieldwork that often different caste groups have different burial grounds. They don't even bury their dead together. So this is prevalent among Muslims also. And I was in Kolhapur, sir, a few days ago, and I heard that every single caste in the city, every single Muslim caste in the city marries after the permission of the Jamaat of their own caste. So there's a Jamaate Bagban, there's a Jamaate Madari, there's a Jamaate Manihar, there's a Jamaate Mullani. Every single caste community, I was told, can marry after the permission of their Jamaat. So, and every single, even if you see now in a lot of Indian cities and towns, there are streets based on names. So I come from Ranchi, and the street we used to live in used to be called Darzi Mall, which is Darzi is a caste. It is the caste of tailors. And there is a lot of, and there's Ansari Mohalla, there will be Sayyid Mohalla, and there will be, of course, some intermixing, but there will be very clear residential stratification based on caste as well. So I wanted to agree with you that there is a lot of social stratification among Muslims. I didn't spend too much time on it, but it is widely documented that many ways in which Muslims live does do it. And even in marriage practices, they marry within endogamous groups. The question often is asked is, is it as bad as in among Hindus? And by a lot of things, one does think that ritually perhaps movement is slightly easier. Perhaps intermarriage between different castes is slightly easier. We don't have very comprehensive data, but by accounts, one can tell that perhaps movement is slightly easier. However, that does not change the reality of socio-economic backwardness. Even if you're able to go to the masjid, it doesn't change that your job remains that of a dhobi, or you are condemned to untouchability. That does not change. And about your second question, sir, about movements for this. So the Pasmanda movement has also raised the question of Dalit Muslims. This was started in the late 90s in Bihar. All India Pasmanda Mahas and All India Backward Muslim Morcha, they both started raising the question of Muslim Dalits. And recently I found out about another group in UP called the Dalit Halal Khor Parishad. Halal Khors are a Dalit Muslim community. They have been involved in sanitation work, and they have been running anti-caste campaigns for the last 30 years. I think from 90s they have been running it, and they have been doing a lot of campaigns, and they have also got the name changed. They used to be called Sweeper earlier, and then they changed it to Halal Khor. So because they wanted a nice name, what do you call upnaam, अच्छा नाम चाहिए था, तो उन्हें हलाल खोर कर दिया कि हम हलाल की कमाते हैं, तो हम हलाल खोर हैं. So they wanted to feel dignified in their labor. So they got dignity in calling their words, their work of sanitation labor as halal. So there are movements like that. There is no pan India movement which is very strong, unfortunately, but different parts of India have these groups which come up. In Maharashtra, I was told that Dalit Muslim movements are not as strong as in UP, and perhaps I am still in the middle of field work. If I find out about any other Dalit Muslim group in Maharashtra, I'll let you know. But there is a very strong OBC Muslim movement in Maharashtra, which was headed by Shabir Ansari, and in Kolhapur by a few people from the Muslim boarding school, and they have been talking about the rights of Muslim OBCs. Thank you.
Yeah, one more small question or clarification. You said a lot of discriminations in North India, but if you compare the situation in Tamil Nadu, you don't find that type of social discrimination. When a person embraces Islam, he moves to Muslim state. He doesn't stay in the Dalit settlement one. And there is no movement he converts to Islam for categorization, SC categorization. This is not taking place. And compared to other religion, now the Dalits prefer to embrace Islam. Yeah, this is my.
Sure, sir. Yeah, I get your point. There is a lot of documentation on caste practices in Kerala and Tamil Nadu and Andhra as well. And the case, as someone mentioned, was also of Hyderabad. So it's not that caste discrimination in Muslims does not happen in the south of India. I think there is a lot of similar discrimination. I don't work on that area, so I'm not able to go into much detail. But Imtiaz Ahmed's book does have a few essays on Tamil Nadu and Kerala as well. So perhaps that could be of interest. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. किसी का सवाल है? Madam, I think no question more now.
Okay, sure. Thank you. It was thank you for the questions. It was very thoughtful, and thank you, Thangaraj sir, and everyone else who asked the questions.
Thank you, ma'am, so much. You are giving so much time on this platform and with this subject. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Alka Patil, ma'am, to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Vidya madam. Good evening, all. I'm audible? Am I audible, madam?
Yes, ma'am. Very much audible.
Thank you to give me a chance to vote of thanks. Today we have organized 74th webinar on caste stratifications among Indian Muslims and state discourse. First of all, today's chairman, I would like to thank Honorable today's chairman, Padamshree Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat sir, former chairman of UGC ICSSR, New Delhi, and president of Association for Social and Economic Equality, Nagpur, for his valuable guidance to us. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to thank today's guest speaker, Honorable Shireen Azam madam, for your valuable, important information and data, madam, for today's webinar. And thank you so much, sir. And you told us how made the Ansaris and Sayyid in Muslims community. It is a very new information to me, and I think for our participant. Thank you so much, madam. I would like to express gratitude to the Honorable Dr. Vimal Thorat, madam, who always guided us. Today we are missing, madam. I express my thanks to Dr. Trilok Hazare sir, Dr. Gautam Kambri sir, and Vidya Chorpagar madam to success today's webinar. We must thanks to Sujay Kranti Ghoshal sir, T.S. More sir, and Thangara sir, who is a part of our discussions. Thank you, sir. And we must thankful today's participations who gave us their valuable time to success this webinar. Rajini Bahadure madam, Ashish Dupare sir, Fula Rangarao ji, Kishore Khandekar sir, Gaurav Barsagade sir, Nitin Tagde sir, Pavan Palaspagar sir, Manohar Thorat sir, Pratik Maheskar sir, Rakesh Agarwal sir, Ranju Anitya madam, Satish Manwar sir, Sima Khandekar madam, Sura Durapure madam, Sushmita Hazarika madam, Vinayak Kamble sir, Vinit Dupare sir, Vishakha ji, Vishleshan Nagarare ji, Mohsin Sheikh sir, T.S. More sir, Avinash Fulzere sir, Dr. Neeraj Ambore ji, Subodh ji, Manohar Chandrikapure ji, Akanksha Bansod sir, Akash Kadiwar sir, Alpana Vaidya madam, Chotelal Prajapati sir, Himanshi Parchakir madam, J.B. Komraji, Mohan Wankhede ji, Neha Gamdhare madam, Niketan Jambulkar sir, Ramdas Suryavanshi sir, Sarla Mishram ji, Shuddhodhan Deshpragar sir, Deshpratar sir, Sujay Kranti Ghoshal sir, Vandana Chandanshwe madam, Vinod Duldule sir, Shiva Ingole sir, Vishal Chakre sir, Amit ji, Ajinkya Vidane ji, and rest of the participants who gave us a valuable time to success our webinar. Thank you so much. Over to Vidya madam.
Thank you, ma'am. आपके भी बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you so much. With the permission of respected president of today's webinar, I conclude this meeting. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for giving us new information, madam. It is very new information today we got.
I'm glad to hear this.